Middle Age Eriu, last of the Tuatha. This is a nation that is not talked about too much, despite the fact that I see it in games a lot. There's almost no discourse around this. It is just a nation that's it's not totally left behind like some are. Micklin being a prime example, but nor has it really been able to fully modernize up into middle age. We are a nation that we got some pretty good strengths, but we also have some pretty distinct weaknesses. Let's see what we can do with them, starting with their lore. When men came to the land of the Tuatha and the Furbolg, there was a drawn-out battle which ended with the defeat and total withdrawal of the Tuatha. The land of the ever-young was forever lost to this world, and Avalon was taken by the witches of man. The Sidhe, descendants of the Tuatha, retreated into strange twilight realms, with entrances hidden in ancient mounds. The land of the Furbolg was split by the invading forces, man and their witches, and the Milesians. The Milesians named their land Eriu. Most of the Eriu population is composed of humans of Milesian ancestry, but a few Furbolgs still survive in remote villages. With the coming of a new god, the Daoni Sidhe have re-emerged from their magical mounds to lead the Milesians. Eriu is a nation of humans and Furbolg led by the awakening Sidhe. This is a nation closely tied in with Tir na Nog, and alongside with man. So nature, glamour type things. Another one of the incessant group of people who invaded those realms. Those poor people have gone through changes in management about 4 or 5 times at this point. For national features, we are Milesian humans and Furbolgs ruled by Sidhe and Tuatha, and we have illusions. For military, we have the Milesian infantry, we have Furbolg infantry, and we have some sacred Sidhe infantry. For magic, we are very strong in glamour, and we have a bit of air, nature, water, earth, and a tiny bit of fire. Our priests go up to average, although they are expensive. For skills and blesses, we get a luck limit of +1. For buildings, we have standard stuff of the era, meaning we go up to castles, and we get half-price temples, which is a nice little bonus. For sites, we have the Mound of Ancient Kings. This allows us to get our cap-only sacred and cap-only mage, and produces 3 glamour and 2 nature gems. Pretty decent incomes, and something to think about when you're planning your magic route. We also have the Furbolg Highlands. This allows us to have the Furbolg recruits in our capital, no matter where it is. In addition, we have some Furbolgs that can be recruited in mountains and highlands that we will look at. Units and sacreds. For our units, this is where some of our problems start. Let's go through them. First up, we have the Milesian Slinger. Milesians as a chassis are human plus. These are like, I guess, half-elves, if you want to call it that way. They are slightly better than humans, generally speaking, and mostly that comes in the fact that they have slightly higher magic resistance. We'll look at a better chassis after this guy, but just know that that is the main takeaway, is better magic resistance than normal. The Milesian Slinger is not particularly good. Slingers already are kind of iffy to begin with. We're now in middle age where armor has increased, and the smart people have all put on helmets, even if they didn't have them before. Shout out to middle age or Eridu, putting on those helmets, being the smart boys that they are. This slinger is essentially a human plus chassis that is a regular slinger wielding a dagger. Not very good. Next up, we have the Milesian Spearman. Again, this is the slightly better than human Milesian. Otherwise, this is essentially an indie spearman. Not particularly useful. 9 protections on the low side for the era, and we have just a human wielding a normal spear. Not particularly good. I will give them a shout out for at least having a hat and a shield. Next up, we have the Milesian Long Spear. These are at least a little more interesting. Because it's a long spear at length 4, you're likely to at least have the chance to get a repel, although our incredibly weak attack is not going to help us out too much there. Otherwise, we also are slightly better armored with 11 protection on average, 60 on the head, 10 on the body. A shielded troop, they're okay. This can be your line infantry if you need to go on the cheaper side. 10 gold, 13 resources, 11 recruitment points. Next up, we have the Milesian Swordsman. Again, this is essentially slightly better than an indie just because of the magic resistance. Other than that, they're a broadsword troop that is essentially standard issue here. 11 attack, 16 slashing damage. That's at least nice. 16 is like what I kind of consider the minimum damage to have a chance of fighting the generic heavy troops of the age. So this guy's at least usable. He is also relatively cheap. 10 gold, 18 resources, 11 recruitment points. Next up, we have the first Furbolg. This is the Furbolg Slinger. We get these note in Capital, as well as the Highland and Mountain forts. I wish they would recruit anywhere in Highland or Mountain. It's annoying that they're only in Highland and Mountain forts. That can be kind of difficult, and I think it's going to make you want to stretch to do that, even if it's not the better fort location, which is annoying more than anything else. Compared to the other ones, I actually like these a lot more. Reason being, Furbolgs are definitively better than humans. Higher HP, higher strength, much better precision. So now we have a sling with +2 precision compared to the other guy for barely any more points. 11 gold, 2 resources, 12 recruitment points. If you're going up against a target that this can affect, this guy is okay. I just still don't love them, but at least they're relatively precise. The downside to both sets of slingers are other Furbolgs, they still refuse to mess up their hair in middle age and refuse to put a helmet on. Maybe it hurts their ears, I don't know. But either way, friendly fire from slingers into the back of your line is going to make you be very sad. They also have stealth and mountain survival. The stealth especially, I don't know, maybe if you can get a stealthy leader, you could sneak these in to support somewhere, but I don't know. I'm not feeling it. Next up, we have the Milesian Man-at-Arms. This is a really interesting one. The group that became Eriu tried to invade Marignan, or at least were in conflict with them, and got repelled. But while they were in that fight, they kind of took the idea of this man-at-arms heavy infantry and brought that idea forward with them. So now we have the slightly better chassis with the Milesian in better gear. So 14 gold, 24 resources, 20 recruitment points. Not cheap, but also not breaking the bank for a essentially standard heavy infantry. That's okay, actually. 16 protection. You can see it's 15 on the body, 18 on the head, and they do have a kite shield. Kite shields are pretty good. That's a high parry amount and good protection on it. Their morale's 12, which is decent. Slightly better than normal magic resistance. A little on the slow side, a little on the high encumbrance side, but for a standard heavy troop, I like these guys, actually. I think these are pretty usable. Note at this point, we are almost at a 1-to-1 resource to recruitment point ratio. Remember that when we're looking at other troops and thinking about production versus sloth, order versus turmoil. Now we're into our Furbolg troop again. This is the Clan Warrior. Again, capital and highlands and mountain forts. This is, I think, exactly the same as early age. We're still using bronze gear. That's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. 15 gold, 10 resources, 18 recruitment points. So now we have flipped. We're almost a 2-to-1 recruitment point to resource ratio. They do have some stealth. They do have mountain survival. Now, their bronze axe is good enough in that it is at least 12 attack. That's handy. And it's 18 slashing damage. So that's okay. They have a bronze cuirass and a shield. So lightly armored troops. These are almost like a light shock troop or something. Kind of a weird middle ground place to be. They're okay. Next up, we have the Furbolg Clan Warrior with Spear. This guy also has the Javelin, whereas the Axe guy does not. If you're fighting something that Javelins can be used on, that's actually kind of nice. They have that high precision and slightly better strength. So a little further, a little more accurate, a little more damaging than normal. We're still wearing that crap gear, though, so we only have 7 protection. We have 11 morale, which is okay. They do have the stealthy bit. So again, maybe some raiding with these guys. I could see that very light raiding on some undefended provinces, just to be a little bit of an annoyance. That would be okay. I will note they have decent they have decent defense skills. That's all right. They're usable. When I'm using the Sacred, I often supplement their numbers with these guys because they're very similar troops. So 11 combat speed and 11, they'll stick together nicely. Next up, we have a very interesting one. Furbolg Cattle Raider. Again, Capital, Highlands, and Mountain Forts. This has a chassis that has a lot of potential. 19 gold, 9 resources, 25 recruitment points. Stat-wise, though, they are brutal. 15 HP, 12 strength, 13 attack, good morale, good magic resistance. They're stealthy and they berserk, and they have mountain survival. They're wielding a bronze battle axe, which is a length 2 weapon, so you could get some repels, and they're actually kind of good at it with 14 attack. 23 slashing damage is absolutely brutal amounts of damage. Now, the main downside here is they are only wearing a bronze scale cuirass. No hat, no heavy armor, no shield. This is a unit that I think you need to get point buffs on. If you give them some protection, if you gave them some air shields, anything like that, they would really enjoy. Quickness would be another one. Getting 2 of these attacks out at 16 attack would be ridiculous. These guys have a lot of potential. Hacking apart heavy infantry, hacking apart giants or monsters. I like these guys a lot. Also note, they are wearing pure bronze. So if you got in a situation where you wanted to throw some rust type things around or anti-iron things around, that might help these guys have a little bit of an edge. You could rust out the enemy's shield and armor, and then we would hit so hard they would probably break the shield on the first block. That's vaguely interesting. Next up, we have the Furbolg Charioteer, same recruitment requirements. These are garbage. These are light EA chariots. They have horses that have no barding whatsoever. They do trample. They are a normal horse, which is an animal, so 5 magic resistance. The guy on the back can throw his javelins while moving. That's about the only positive thing I can really say about this troop. 35 gold, 22 resources, 38 recruitment points. These are usable if you consider them to be a single-use fire and forget missile. Maybe 5 or 10 of these guys hold an attack rear in the right circumstances could get a little bit of work done, but otherwise, I think these are pretty garbage. Finally, we have our cap-only Sacred, the Daoian Shi. Unfortunate is all I can say about this. They are not Numidian infantry, that's for sure. They are 35 gold, 12 resources, 23 recruitment points. So the theme of the Furbolgs is much higher recruitment than resources. So if you're going less on the production side of things, I think you want to go a little higher on maybe the recruitment point side of things and focus on these guys. But remember that our Furbolg troops are limited in their recruitment and where we can get them. You're not guaranteed to have highlands and mountains. So I don't know, that could be a little sketchy if you're going that route. For the Sacred itself, they do have those better stats. This is a Shi, so a different chassis than what we've been looking at. Good HP, good strength, good attack, that's all nice. Okay precision, good precision, in fact, for their javelins. But as a Sacred in the Middle Age, they're slightly better humans, I guess. Sacred, stealthy, they have glamour. They are vulnerable to iron. Most of your opponents will be using iron, so that will increase damage taken. And 13 HP is not much different than 10 from a human. They have forest survival, and they have dark vision. Weapon and equipment-wise is where we really get let down, though. Bronze spear, so not even a magic golden spear. That would really help them out. No magic hoplite, shield. No, just bronze scale cuirass, bronze cap, and a shield. I think these guys are okay as line holders with 15 defense, but they're gonna need something to help them either stay alive longer and be a tar pit, or actually do some killing. Their one benefit is, I guess, they're decent repellers, but other than that, they don't have a lot going on here. I think you need to think carefully about what you want to bless. because they're not stellar, because they are cap only, I think that's going to push on where we want to take our bless quite strongly. Spoilers, we do have a summonable sacred that's okay, and we also have some pretty thuggy commanders that we can use. So again, kind of pulling us in different directions in what we might want to make for our bless. Heroes, commanders, and profit. For heroes, we have a nice little lineup here. We have the Furbolg hero. Not too much to say about this guy. He's a leader that goes berserk. We have the hero. This is a interesting chariot, although unarmored, so you're going to need to get some barding. If you did get the barding, it is a glamored horse. And the hero that rides upon him does have awe, fire resistance, and fire shield, and goes berserk pretty heavily. He has a ranged Gubulga for a ranged attack. This is a harpoon, which is like a net. Very interesting. I don't know. Maybe he could be an arena champion. That's one place I think he might do really well, especially if there's nothing large so he can trample things. We have the Last Partholonian, a very nice caster here. Air 2, Water 1, Death 4. I believe this is... Our heroes are our only death access, so that's handy. Got some glamour. Is immortal. Air and Death means winds of death. Glamour and air means wailing winds. So very, very strong. Winds of Death on an immortal is very, very, very good. Does have an abbot researcher. A great unit. You'd love to get this. I think I would mostly just be looking at trying to get Winds of Death up and running if I got this guy. Next up, we have Fianna. This is interesting. These are... Every now and then a baby is born with Fomorian blood in their veins. I think this is a multi-recruit hero. I've only ever had one at once, but I think I've just been unlucky. They are sacred, and they have inspirational, and they have 150 leadership. So +3 morale to what they're leading, and they can lead large amounts of troops. That's pretty solid. Leading some heavy infantry with these guys, those guys are going to fight to the death, probably. That's kind of nice. Also note that Iron Gear, that really helps out a lot too. So now we are actually up to 16 protection while maintaining that good defense. Quite nice. In fact, our encumbrance is even a little bit lower because Iron Gear has less encumbrance than Bronze. Pretty nice. Finally, we have the Trainer of Heroes. This is a really cool one. This is a Warrior Sorceress who's a descendant of the Morgans. Air 2, Death 2, Glamour 2. Also has Fortune Teller 15 and is a Spell Slinger. This makes you take half fatigue, but take 50% longer to cast your spells. Very interesting. I don't know exactly. I guess I'd probably use them in combat. Same comments here about what she could be casting, although going to need more boosters to actually pull it off. For our standard commanders, we have the Milesian Scout. It's a normal scout for all intents and purposes. It's not more expensive, so having slightly better stats is fine. We have scouts, that's always handy. Next, we have the Milesian Champion. Garbage because it is a 75 leadership, not 100. Beyond that, at least it's in heavy gear. So get some of these maybe to build your forts and ferry troops around. But we really want to be in formations. I don't think I have anything I wouldn't want to be in a formation. Even slingers, I would like them to be in a line or even sparse so that they could maybe win archer duels. So this guy wouldn't even help leading those around. Next, we have the Milesian Monk. 1 recruitment point, 1 resource, 45 gold. So it's essentially an indie priest-ish, and it's a priest level 1 sacred. Nothing special, nothing to write home about. It's usable, it's at least cheap. Next, we have the Bard. Glamour 1, 7 research for 84 gold per year. Is stealthy, is a spy. Spies can be used to either increase unrest in a province or to gain access to the enemy's score graphs. In addition, spies can look and see what a throne is by just walking to it. That's really handy when you're trying to count VPs. Next, we have the Milesian Mage. This is a pretty good mage, actually. It's only 160 gold, 1 resource, not slow to recruit. It's the Milesian chassis, which is slightly better than human with the extra magic resist. Do note low morale, but you get 11 research for 128. Not quite efficient, but also not miserable. And this can be one of our main combat mages. especially as a point buffer. We come in with Air 1, Earth 1, and we get a random of either Fire, Air, Earth, or Nature. I think any of those except for maybe the Nature would be pretty useful. 2 Air allows us to do some buffing of like Mist Form, of Air Shields, and allow us to buff Aim. Those are all handy. 2 Earth allows us to Earth Power, and then we could do Temper Armor, which our line would very appreciate. We could do some protection buffs. We could do strength buffs. Strength buffs would really help our line out. Because of our bad equipment and relatively human strength stats, the extra strength would really be handy for actually getting some kills with our line troops. The fire is less useful in combat. It's just too low, but you could give it a gem and then you could firepower up to 2 and then you could do some fire 2 stuff. But I think their main use is maybe to do a little bit of crafting. Fire has the Jar of Fire for the previous thought. It also has the Rod of Eruption, which, while not great, also isn't terrible for thugs. It at least has an AoE attack. Other various fire items that you can get cheaply. It'd be okay. Next up, we have the She Champion. Very nice leadership chassis. A little on the pricey side, 225, 19 resources, not slow to recruit. Also note, not cap only or anything, no requirements there. Comes in with 100 leadership, so we have formations. And it has Nature 1, Glamour 1, Priest 1, 9 research for 90 gold, so it is efficient in that regard. And has Stealth, Glamour, Iron Vulnerability, Force Survival, provides some supply because of the nature, has Dark Vision, and is a Spell Singer. I like these a lot. I like commanders that actually can do something right from the beginning of the game. If absolutely nothing else, this guy could give himself Barkskin, Eagle Eyes, throw his javelins, do a little bit of like Fascination or Sleep Ray. This is okay. Throw some webs, throw some vine arrows, and because he's a spell slinger, he can do it very cheaply. He's not going to pass out too bad. He does have kind of high spellcasting encumbrance, but not miserable. So while he's not going to be like a amazing combat mage, he at least can help better than just standing behind the fight. And having glamour, some protection, good defense, he's less likely to get pecked to death by a random bird or something, which is a nice benefit. Next, we have the Banshee. Slightly different than the previous versions. Not an assassin or anything here. Comes in with Water, Nature, Glamour, and a random of Air, Water, Earth, Nature, and Glamour. So quite random on the pathing and not getting particularly high. She would make a good chassis to go out and do some water site searching for you, especially if you can luck into a Water 2, I would say. 13 research for 114 gold a year is efficient. Helped out quite a bit by being sacred. Is stealthy, has glamour, has the iron vulnerability, force survival, supply bonus, dark vision, and is a spell slinger. One of the big notes I would say here is she can buff Moss Body. Remember, we have those cattle raiders that are desperate for buffs. Well, Moss Body would be pretty good protection for them and would help them out quite a bit. Also, if she's water 2, liquid body and or quickness are some other buffs that could be helpful there. Not bad. Next up, we have the She Lord. This, if you're going to go with a thugging strategy, is probably your go-to guy. 375 gold, 17 resources, 2 recruitment points. We have that Fey Horse problem where it's not wearing any armor, so you probably are going to need to make some armor for them. They would really like that. Outside of that, though, these are decent thugging paths, actually. We have Nature 1, Glamour 2, Priest level 2. So a thug can bless themselves, give themselves Barkskin, Aura of Bewilderment, and Ephemeral Swords. That's a okay script. Leaves you one open spot for maybe a blur or something. And they do have a magic weapon, which is nice. I wish they didn't have the javelins. That's a waste of time. Otherwise, they're wearing bronze gear. That's unfortunate. So I do think you can do some light thugging. This is going to be pretty dependent on what you take for your bless. What would they like? They would like things that help the horse not die. So you're talking ethereal, you're talking air shield, you're talking maybe hard skin, although that's probably not enough. Invulnerability or Stygian flesh, maybe. All of those could be okay. I don't think you're looking for a quickness here. Our other sacreds are not particularly great with quickness either, so I think that's kind of out. Awe would be nice. Fear would be nice. So I think you have to tailor your bless probably around these guys. Even if you don't plan on doing heavy thugging, I think they're still useful as army thugs quite nicely. Next up, we have the Furbog Champion. He does have the Furbog recruitment requirements. He's pretty much garbage. He's 75 leadership. His one use, I would say, is he does have stealth 40 and enough leadership to lead guys around. So if you're going to do some Furbog raiding, he's the guy to lead them. 75. Yeah, you could do something with that. You could have mainly, I would say, these javelin guys, and then have a few of these cattle raiders, so like flank maybe. That could maybe make something happen. Next up, we have the Furbog Druid. Same Furbog recruitment requirements. Air 1 and has a random of water, earth, nature, or glamour. 84 gold a year for 9 research is on the cusp of efficient. I would say his main use, I don't know. He is a little more efficient than the Milesian Mage, but these guys are so vital to our combat force. I think we really need the buffs that they can bring, and I'm going to want to be fishing for Air 2s and Earth 2s, so every one of these I get, they don't have a lot of combat potential. I mean, the Milesian Mage could even throw off some lightning or some blade winds if I had to, whereas this guy, he doesn't have a lot going on here. Doesn't have a lot going on. Finally, we have the Tuatha. This is our cap only. Comes in at Nature 2, Glamour 3, Priest level 2, and a random of Air, Water, Earth, Nature, Glamour. For the most part, I think the biggest claim to fame right here is that you can do Twilight out of the box. No shenanigans needed, just you cast Twilight. That's really good. That means that we can take our She-Lords from 2 to 3 and do some pretty hefty battlefield or on battlefield glamour magic. I'm especially thinking about Illusionary Army is the one that I keep coming back to. Beyond that, this is a better thug, although you pay almost twice for it. I think you're better to have 2 slightly less good ones than 1 expensive one. They are also slow to recruit. Do note, exceedingly high defense. 22 defense, failed by a horse with no armor. Again, you're going to need some barding. Beyond that, though, the 2 nature also allows you to do personal regen for a very high defensive troop. That's relatively nice, although his HP is nothing to write home about. He is using the golden gear for the shield and the lance, which is rather nice. They're okay. I think I would like one of these guys with my big armies to Twilight more than anything else. Beyond that, though, I think the She-Lords are probably the better pick. They can get the most important things off, and they're just so much cheaper. I have 2 of these guys for the other, and I think that makes up all the difference. Who would I make my prophet? I would like a She champion to be my prophet. Reason being, I could throw a bark skin in to the script, and that would make them a lot safer than otherwise. If you go with the cavalry, note we don't really have a lot of cavalry that we're going to use. People could target you with fire enemy cavalry, and that makes it pretty easy to pick out a prophet. Whereas a infantry guy is much harder to be able to script anything that's going to target that for sure. National items and spells. For national items, we have 1. We have the Shillelagh. This gives you luck. It gives you a sprite as a retinue. Costs us a 3 glamour gems, 2 nature, a 1 in each path to be able to forge. This is okay. We have lots of mages that are essentially human chassis. Giving them luck means that maybe they survive that 1 crossbow bolt. That could be handy. The sprites are not terrible distractions. That could be all right. It is also a magic weapon. Maybe that's relevant to you, depending on what's assassinating you, perhaps. Overall, not something that I am hugely in love with. Other things to think about for forging. AoE weapons like the Frostbrand or the Mace of Eruption are really nice because if we're going to thug, we probably need some AoE to be able to actually kill off things that we are fighting. Both of these can do it. We have Fire 1 mages. We have Water 1 mages. Both of those would work just fine. You could also go Lightning Spear. This gives you a armor negating shock attack. Also gives you a length 3 weapon for repelling, whereas the other two are much shorter. Might be a little more safe if you're going up against more elite troops with your leaders. Beyond that, I think we are looking at the glamour boosting helmet for the +1. We can natively cast that. We do have glamour 3s automatically. Note it gives you extra blur, and it gives you stealth. So that could be interesting on certain units. Beyond those, I think we are still also looking at miscellaneous items. And I think in here, what we're mainly looking at is Amulet of Barkskin could allow us to save a script on our thugs. Handful of acorns could be relatively nice for defending people that might be getting assassinated or such. The temporary glamour items, the Dream Spool, gives you temp gems and 2 illusionary warriors. That's kind of handy. The Dream Stone is a good research item that is relatively cheap. However, we have to have it on glamour mages, which we can do. So gives you something to do with a glamour 1 mage that otherwise maybe wouldn't have anything else to do. One of these and an air quill, or one of these and a homunculus, is a lot of research. That's plus 20, a homunculus and a dreamstone. That's relatively spooky, the amount that we can get out from a single cheapish mage. Beyond that, we have the fire in a jar, of course the alcohol I previously mentioned. We can get rings of water breathing or shambler skins, so we have a little ability to get underwater. And we can thug underwater, which is probably better than trying to get an army or something down there. So we might be able to do okay with that. Other things, we can craft the Wound Fend amulet. I take that back. We would need Astral to do that, but that would help out our cavalry quite a bit so that our mounts don't get afflicted ridiculously in combat. Moving over to magic, we have 2 national spells. First up is Conj 3. We have the Kushi. Very efficient. Very, very efficient. It only requires a Glamour 2 mage, so our She commanders can do it. It gives us 10 of them for 5 gems. So for half a gem, we get this chassis. This is not terrible. 3 conjuration is easily achievable, and we can easily get out some Glamour 2 mages to be able to do it. And we have starting 3 Glamour gem income. So by the time you research this, you should be able to get off at least 2 casts just right away. Now, these aren't the best. They're not Bargeist, unfortunately. These are almost good boys, slightly good boys. All right boys. So they come in at Sacred. They are stealthy, have iron vulnerability, force survival, animal, and dark vision. 26 HP, good strength, good attack, okay defense. Good magic resist, good morale. What I like these guys for is using them like cavalry, which we don't really have. So hold and attack rear. Depending on your bless, these are more or less useful. If I was making a bless just for them, no other considerations aside, something like maybe Fire Shield and Regeneration, or Awe, Fear, Regeneration, something like that, just to kind of be like, give them a way to actually kill things. Because unfortunately, they just have a regular bite. 13 attack is okay, 17 slashing damage is okay, but low attack density, it's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. I do like these though. I think they're worth getting just because they're so bloody efficient. 10 gems is going to give us, 5 gems is going to give us 260 HP. That's pretty ridiculous. In addition, they're not terrible at siege strength. So another thing that they can help with, rather than spending earth gems that are kind of precious to us, we could spend some glamour gems for some siege strength. That's something vaguely useful. Next up, we have a second one in Thaumaturgy. We have the Gias. This is an interesting spell. Glamour 2, so relatively easy for us to cast. 100 precision, 25 range. It is a difficult to negate with magic resistance. So that's rather nice. And it is victim will attack anyone nearby, and they end it by passing a difficult morale check at a +8, and it results in being cursed. So This is not terrible, especially if you have enemies that are killy enough to hurt themselves. Throwing this into a line will cause confusion, break up the line, have them hit other things. It's okay. I think one of the main benefits here is we are likely to want to go down Thaumaturgy, and so you'll get this no matter what. Why do we want to go down Thaumaturgy? We like luck quite a bit. We have a lot of almost human chassis. We'd sure like to buff them up some. Steel Breath gives our air mages something to do. Sleep is all right. Beast Fury. Luck, Despair. Dispeller is a nice fear effect. Air of effect 5, range 30. It's cheap to cast. It's armor negating. And it's against magic resistance. So we can hit them with this and give them a 5 morale penalty. And it's only level 3. Like, that's not bad. That we could get that quite early. Beyond that, coming down further, we can do Rage of the Corner Rat. This would be nice for our Husi. We could buff them up with that. Also, probably not anything else that we're going to summon in. Ferocity is another animal buff spell. Slumber, a good way to knock people out. Area of effect 3+, and we can get some Glamour 3s easily with Twilight, and even Glamour 4s or 5s, depending. And you could just sleep whole bunches of dudes. Visions of Death is very interesting. This is almost as good as like a Soul Slay against, relatively human-ish things. So range is 35+. It's very precise. It's not too fatiguing. And it does 25+ armor negating false damage. So that enemy pretender, boy, he better hope he doesn't fail a magic resistance, because 25+, so that could be a lot higher, because you're going to get a DRN on top of that. So this is almost like a Soul Slay for 20 fatigue. Not bad. Not bad at all. Going even deeper, Confusion gives us an AoE 1, very precise thing that gives 50% chance to be confused. They wander around randomly. They attack random things. This is the same thing that Shroud of Bewilderment does to people, and that is a very powerful effect. Group Luck. Now we can buff our line troops much more effectively. Remember those cattle rustlers? This would help them out a lot. Being able to negate the first hit means maybe they could kill somebody, then they survive the hit, and then they kill somebody, and then they die. That's 100% improvement on what would have otherwise perhaps happened. Quite strong. Going deeper, you can do Beckoning. Our cap-only mage has a chance to get Glamour 4 natively, and he can easily be able to build a booster to get here. This is an interesting one. For only 20 gems, I say only, that is pricey. Number of effects is 75, range 4, has to target forests. 75 enemy units will be killed. MR and difficult morale negates. Units with forest survival ignore it. So if you're fighting somebody who's using lots of troops this can affect, losing 75 troops is pretty brutal. So you could ambush somebody quite effectively on some forests. Sandman's Blessing is interesting. Sleeping units will not take actions or defend themselves. So a big sleep here of 25 air of effect. And again, we can get to 5. Like, this is achievable with our cap onlys. That's not too bad. Going deeper down there, we have Charm. This is very spammable for us. So this essentially just takes enemy units if they fail their magic resistance. We also have Mass Confusion. Again, really nice here. Air of effect 5+. We can have 3, 4, 5 guys be able to cast this once Twilight comes up, and just really mess up the enemy line. Somebody like Olm is going to absolutely hate something like this. In addition, at 7, we also have Gates of Horn and Ivory. This is the gem generating ritual for Glamour. 15 Glamour gems a month, and increases range of Glamour spells. Kind of interesting. Again, we can natively get to this, so you don't have to build a Pretender God to get this. I like that a lot, actually. In addition, if we go up to 8, now we have Battle Fortune. This is the Air Effect 20+ luck buff. I think it's worth shooting for that in the late game. I don't know if we can rush it, though, because we're going to need to get some other thug tech. Speaking of other thug tech, in enchantment, what we're mainly looking at here is to get to 3 to get Shroud of Bewilderment. This is a quite nice, quite protective spell, and will keep your thugs much safer than it might otherwise be. Note, penetration bonuses do apply if you wanted to gear them that way. I probably wouldn't waste the resources, but it's food for thought. Construction, again, the boosting items at 5 are going to be the most vital for us. In Evocation, Ephemeral Bolt is a nice early Ava effect spell that we can easily cast. We can get Dance of Ephemeral Swords, again, something to buff our thugs with. This will allow it to do 3 attacks every round. Going deeper, Ephemeral Blast. Now we're doing a AoE 4 plus false damage, 7 magic damage with a DRN on top of that. It is false damage. Going up to 5, we get Illusionary Army. And I think this is really a good spell to shoot for on Eriu because our line troops just are not the best. Having some heavy infantry that are just dudes is fine, and then mix them in with some Illusionary Army, where these are those 1 HP, ethereal, high defense troops. It takes forever to chew through these if you don't have magic weapons. And you're going to get 20 of these guys plus. So if we brought, let's say, 1 guy cast Twilight, and let's say 4 guys are going to cast this just once, just one time. That's 80 additional troops on the field that are hard for the enemy to deal with. Then maybe we could do some of the, like, Dread or something, and just fear them off the field while this tar pits. I think that's quite interesting. Beyond that, we also can do False Horrors. Very spooky, would combo well with what we were just talking about. Wailing Winds, we do have a little bit of opportunity for this in our heroes. Same thing with Shimmering Fields. We can get up to 5 on our guys. So Evocation is kind of interesting, even though I don't think we're an Evocation nation, at least not in what you would traditionally think about that. Alteration is very important with the normal buffs that we would always get, of course, but the big one here being at 4 getting Twilight, so that we can easily be able to buff all of our glamour mages up. I think this is very vital, and you kind of want to time things around when you're going to get this. I think you would love to have Twilight, and then something that is glamour 3 for those guys that are getting boosted to cast. Beyond that, we also could do Nightfall if you want to just make it pure dark. Do note, Furbolgs don't have dark vision or anything, so Twilight is going to hurt us a little bit, but we also can buff ourselves with, like, Cat Eye Warriors, which will grant dark vision. Gonna need a Thistle Mace and a Cap-only Mage to do that. But, needs must. And that can let us do something a little sneaky with some vision problems. Shadow Warriors, another great buff. This is also where we could get some Earth buffs for our Milesian mages to be able to cast. Would help our line troops out a lot. Finally, Conjuration. Again, Summon Earth Power is a big one for us. I don't think we're going to get storms, so I don't think that matters, but the Kushi are nice. Another thing is Feyfolk and the bigger versions of that. We can natively cast all the way, we can guaranteed get Summon Fey Knights. We can guaranteed with a single booster get Fey Prince. And we can recruit a cap-only guy out of the box who can cast Fairy Court. So I kind of think going down Thaumaturgy to get the Gates of Ivory and Bone, and then using that's only 4 rounds of that, and that alone would be enough to cast a Fairy Court, which brings you in a Fairy Queen, which breaks us into air and some other pathing. If you're in cold, you get the Unseelie, which I believe also might have death on them. And then you just get some of the Fey things. These Fey units are way better than most of our line troops, and I think we would absolutely love them supplementing us. Beyond that, we don't have the best things. Like, we're not going to be able to summon Gnome out of the box. That's unfortunate because Gnomes are pretty decent. With Boots, we could do Hill Giant. That's already kind of pushing it. Nature, we can get some Nature 3s, so any of those maybe. I think the big one is going for the Fey summons. And do remember, if you cast those in cold provinces, you get the Unseelie ones, which frankly are just better than the others. So Whether you take that into account, it depends because we don't also have snow move or anything. So we would be like kneecapping ourselves a little bit if we went that route. For me, I think I'm very interested in thaumaturgy and rushing gates of horn and ivory. However, I don't think you can do that straight out. I think you need some mix of construction and thug tech to get going. Probably going to need the Conj 3 for the Kushi to just give us a little bit of better troops to use, and then maybe making the run at that point down here. There's lots of other stuff in the way that would be really good, and having Twilight would allow us to do things like Charm, Mass Confusion, and Visions of Death, all of which would be really nice for us. So I think there's a ton in Thaumaturgy that we want. We just have to decide when the moment is to make the run down that. And maybe it's once you have Construction 5. Homunculi and a Dreamstone is 20 extra research. That would make this a lot quicker to finish up that sprint that you're going to have to do. Okay, so let's bring it all together. We're a nation that is generally behind in tech, although we do have at least a standard heavy infantry, which is appreciated. We have some kind of weird recruitment requirements where we really want highlands and mountains. And as you can see in this game, yeah, not a lot. Not a lot. Nothing on this side. Here's one finally. I have one here, but I'd have to build a fort here because that's in my cap circle. That one doesn't have any. So counting on the furbogs, I think is kind of risky. I wouldn't do that. But at least you're guaranteed you have some in your capital. So you're guaranteed to be able to get out your Sacred, of course, and some of the full-blood cattle raiders is probably what I would transition to later once you can buff them. Beyond that, in a regular type fort, we have kind of blah for recruitments. The regular slingers are garbage. The furbogs are okay. So I think you're probably going to want Legion arms at men-at-arms. But remember, for them, they need a lot of resources and recruitment points, whereas our furbogs are much skewed towards recruitment points. So just think about what scales you want to take when designing that and who you're going to actually recruit. In this game, you can see here I am just Sloth 1 for the purposes of that. So getting my Sacreds out, let's say I'm going to do a Mage, a full set of Sacreds. I still have a decent amount here. Now, I did get a good cap circle. So if I went with the Cattle Rustlers, I have way too many resources left. If I don't go for them and I go for the Heavies, that's much closer. I'm actually running out of recruitment points first. So I think no matter where you put your scales, you're going to not quite be able to zero out. And of course, we could do some combination therein where we try to really zero this out the best we can. So I think the troops are definitely a letdown for us. This is acceptable, but nothing super. We don't have a good archer type unit, although the Furbog Slinger is at least usable, but not good. Not good. The chariots are garbage. I like the Furbog Cattle Raider, but he needs a lot of point buffing before he really becomes good. Imagine you have this guy, and he's got, like, let's say Barkskin. Well, Barkskin's actually going to be harder for us to do. He's going to have some form of earth buff, so he's going to have, like, let's say Stone Skin, and he'll have luck. Just that alone, and this is a much spookier unit. A much spookier unit. We also have access to Temper Armor, which plays well with the heavies, and not so much them, because they only have one piece of gear to buff, whereas here we would get two. So more food for thought there. I definitely think we are a nation that is more focused on our mages, possibly a thug expansion type place, and then transitioning into a combination of buffing our own troops to keep them alive long enough for us to get the big glamour stuff out. I think that's where we really want to go. We're going to have one of these guys cast Twilight, and then we're going to have a hopefully large number of these guys doing illusionary armies and like ephemeral blasts, or doing mass charm, mass confusion type things. I think that is the way. And then if we survive long enough, we get more and more phase summons in, and we supplement our armies with those. At least for me, that's kind of been my game plan. A big weakness is without an expansion god, your expansion sucks. It is miserable. Killing knights, you basically have to rely on cattle raiders, and you're not going to trade well. So it is very, very punishing. There are not a lot of good, easy targets. You're looking for the easiest of the easiest to get yourself started. In this game, we'll look at this pretender, but I had an awake that gave me ethereal, and it was okay. In fact, let's go look at pretender gods. For pretenders, we have the Celtic culture group and a couple other little additions. I think this is okay. There's definitely some interesting ones in here. Starting at Dominion 1, the Great Enchantress is very interesting to me because of the extra gem gen. That would give us 4 glamour gems right off the bat. Remember, we only need 5 to get some Kushi summoned, so that is not bad. Maybe we just rush a bunch of Kushi and we rush somebody's fort down with those. I know that sounds weird, but like 3 casts is 30, so 30 of those plus whatever you've scrounged together to break the walls down, that's a maybe. She also benefits from just being really cheap. It's just 100 points. Beyond them, I don't think any of those are particularly interesting. Great Sage, I like. That's the one you saw in there. We'll look at a Great Sage build in a minute, but I think we are a nation that would love to rush research. It's just, can we survive long enough to actually have it do something? The Archdruid is interesting in that he's an Ivy Lord. That could maybe lean into your summoning strategy where we would use our nature gems to summon in some Vine Ogres is probably what we'd like to do. That is something. That's something. The Frostfather. This would be an interesting one if you were going to go cold and you were going to focus in on trying to get the Unseelie troops summoned. He also has air and water. That's not the worst combination for some kind of bless for thugs. Air shield or awareness or swiftness. I don't think we want quickness, but this is a chassis who could do it. Just some defense would be nice, maybe. And there's some possibilities there. We also have the Great Sorceress. Comes in with Death and Glamour. Is a spell slinger. I'm less inclined on this one. Death and Glamour make me think Winds of Death, but she's not immune to it, so I don't think that one's happening. Moving up to our Dom 2s, I think there's a couple standouts. We have the reliable Earth Snake, although I feel like he's fallen off a little bit in Dom 6. Other things of interest, I think, are Fire and Air, because Fire Shield and Air Shield would be an amazing buff to put on both our dogs and our sacreds and our thugs. All 3 of them would like those to varying degrees. I don't know if those are the best for any one of them, but it's decent for all 3. I think that's possible. If you are a dragon enjoyer, I do think this is a nation that could take a dragon. Again, if you're going to do that cold Unseelie type strategy, maybe a cold dragon here? Maybe? It would be cold, so the cold spells are a little bit better. He changes into a Frostfather. You could summon in some Ice Drakes. That would give you something to do with water, which we do have some water site searchers, so we could get some. I don't think we go like stupid cold. I don't know if cold 3's in the books, but you'd probably want cold 2 if you're going to go that route, so you can guarantee that your places stay chilly enough to summon things in. I don't know. I'm always so leery about things like this. 18 protection just ain't it. And what are we going to get with just water? Maybe we're just going to make him a quickness dude? I don't know about that one. That's iffy to me. Beyond those, Hooded Spirit is a Trinity. Trinities are kind of interesting. You end up with a lot of research if you start with them awake. So maybe that's something. Although, frankly, I think the Sage wins out in this one because we do have efficient researchers that he can buff. The Thrice Horned Boar is a reasonable expander. I would probably go hard skin and enough. I would go nature 2 so that he could self-buff personal regen. He does come in with recuperation, which is pretty nice. He's size 9, so he can trample things pretty effectively. So you're looking at something like Iron Skin, Temper Flesh, personal regen, and that'll probably do him. He'll berserk for +5. The stone skin or hard skin is another 6, so that's 11. Yeah, that puts him up into safety range easily enough. I do want to call out the Serpent of Heavenly Fires. For 170, he's a lot cheaper than a Solar Eagle. I'm going to show you a build of him, though, so we'll talk about him in a minute. Moving up to Dom 3s, we have a decent medley here. The Vola of the Bountiful Forest is a gem gen. She is a water and a nature gem. Again, the phase summon strategy can use nature gems, so that's something. Nature and water aren't terrible for getting some useful blesses for you. Eriu of Farming is a nature genner. If you were just going to go with like regeneration, which I don't think is the best bluff, but Horned One is a possibility, although he is way more expensive than Irminsul. Eriu of War, he's a combat caster that has some value, but I don't think that's happening there. The Morgana is an interesting one. This is another Trinity chassis, so could be useful. They like chaos power, so if you're gonna go turmoil, maybe that could be a thing. The Matrona of Healing Spring, I'm going to show you a build on her, but she brings in a starting site that gives you healing. So our Fey troops that like to acquire lots and lots of afflictions, we could bring them back to the capital and heal them. That has some value to me, at least. Lord of the Forest, not a huge fan. We already have these things. Mother of Storms, she does bring in a site. I believe hers is an air gem. I don't think we particularly crave air gems, although that would give you a head start for crafting Alquills. We don't natively have air income, and we would really like to build Alquills. So maybe that could be something there. I do like these starting sites. I think they are very interesting because you get them even if you are imprisoned or dormant from turn 1, compared to a gem genner who has to be awake for that to be relevant. Speaking of which, we do have Irminsul, who does give you a site, which is a nature gem. He is also an Ivy Lord. So again, if you're going to go with that like nature aspect, he could be a good one. Maybe instead of going all the way to regen, maybe we get Barkskin. Barkskin's one I don't normally get. I don't even know the cost. It's 6. With that though, some extra defense or some extra protection isn't terrible. We don't have high protection natively, so we will get most, if not all, of that +7. We're not very good at painting Barkskin on our troops, and that would free up our Earth Mages to do Temper Armors and Strength of Giants for their buffing script. So I actually don't hate that. That would be okay on our Thugs. That's what they would get, whether they cast themselves or get it from an item. So that frees up script time, or that frees up items that you don't have to craft for them. I don't hate that. So -1 point, so we need to go 7. We could go, I think with him, I would probably go very heavy scales. That is really heavy scales. And I think we pay for that like here. Maybe even a smidge. Ooh, a 0 out one. I actually think that's okay. I think that's okay. The Barkskin's not stupendous, but it's just a cheapie. And he's incarnate, so we have it right off the bat. We get that extra nature, so we're going to start the game with 3 glamour, 3 nature for our income. That would really open up like swarm spamming. Could be pretty good with something like that. And really look to transition to glamour and nature summons. And these are some pretty nice scales. We're a turmoil, high luck, high magic build, high growth. I actually think that's pretty interesting. I'm going to... Okay, Heartbud, you're in, man. Maybe we'll look at you on stream. Beyond that, we have the Monolith. Monolith can be pretty useful. I don't know if we're going with a heavy bless, which is where he's maybe a little more useful. We have the Oracle, which could be useful for the quickness. Again, I don't think we're looking for that. And I don't think we're going for blood either. Let's take a look at a couple builds there that I mentioned. So first up, we have Svelti. This is one of those heavenly fire serpents. The thing for him is We come in with not completely miserable scales. He is dormant, unfortunately. So expansion is going to be misery. But once he does come in, fire shield, air shield, very, very strong on our thugs and usable on our sacreds that otherwise don't really do a lot. So this will make us not have to worry about taking an arrow to the knee, so we don't have to retire. And the fire shield will let other things just kill themselves on us and free us from the burden of having to attack people to kill them, because we're not very good at that with our sacreds. The Kushi would appreciate this bless. They don't like getting shot, and they're not good at killing things. So again, good there. But where I think this really shines is on our thugs. Our thugs are very hard to hit, so fire shield is pretty good, and they're very vulnerable to range fire. So air shield is pretty good. So an interesting pick, to be sure. Him himself, he also could fly around. We don't have fire or air in high amounts, so this is wind guide and fire arrows, maybe for the troops. He could summon in flame spirits, could be kind of interesting. Also can make air boosters for our heroes, which would allow them to do wailing winds or winds of death, respectively. That could be something interesting. I don't know if he works, though. Next, we have Frederick Harold Dominicus, aka PhD. This is a great sage. He's an awake great sage with ethereal. He went with a smidgen of earth and a little bit of death and glamour. The glamour only really because I want him to be able to equip a dreamstone, since he's going to stay at home and research the entire game, most likely. It comes in with 44, although I think in game I actually had 49 when all was said and done because of the magic scales. That doesn't sound right, but it was high 40s, whatever it ended up being. And he gives that inspirational +1 to other people researching where he's at. This is the I'm rushing for research guy. And ethereal's pretty nice for our sacreds too. Again, it's just an extra defensive layer that we really kind of need. The downside here is he doesn't add any killiness to those sacreds like the fire shield would do. I think he's a good choice in this case, though. I think we need to rush down some glamour research, and he's a guy that will allow us to do that. Essentially, having almost 50 per turn means you can blitz through up to like level 3 research in a thing early in the game where maybe you're having to spend all of your money on infrastructure and troops because your troops suck and you need infrastructure. So, an interesting pick. Finally, we have Siriona, Goddess of Bathwater. She is a Matrona of the Healing Spring. She comes in with okay scales. This is more of a I'm really hoping I get Furbolgs type build because I went with the extra order. You could change that out. You don't have to go order here. You could lower that, maybe even it out with production a little bit. Any variety of that you could do. Lots of growth, lots of luck, and good magic. Comes in with 2 defense skill and 2 heroism. Again, it's just okay for all of our sacreds. It's not stupendous. Heroism's pretty nice for them. Heroism also means that maybe sacred researchers are better than your non-sacreds, because when you get 1 level of experience, you get +1 research. So this is the equivalent of like a few turn delayed +1 research on researchers. That's interesting. And she's a mobile healer, although only healer 1, so of limited use. I think the sight is more interesting here. She's in prison, so she's not going to come out for a long, long time. And I basically just kept it really cheap up here. This is nothing to write home about. We can basically do anything up there. So just wanted to do another one. I've never actually used one of her, and I thought the starting site is pretty interesting. And this is, again, just an okay bless. Of these guys, I like PhD quite a bit. And I would love to run Svelti, but I'm not sure that we can survive a year for this to come out. If we were going to do that, I think I would probably focus on Glamour Gem income and trying to summon in as many dogs as possible. And as soon as he shows up, try to rush somebody down. I think that would be the plan, because your expansion is going to be Garbo. I didn't make any here, but I do think that the expander gods like the Thrice-Horned Boar would be pretty good, because we really suck at expansion. And we would like to beeline some mountains or highlands so that we could summon in some more or recruit in more Furbolg troops. And an Awake Expander will be better at doing that than not having an Awake Expander. So another place for some food for thought. If we were gonna, let's actually look at one more. Let's look at that thrice horn, because I think that's who I would go of the expander gods we have available to us. Yeah, I just think Earthstopper has really fallen off. The fear's okay. Fear's okay. Thrice horn boar. If we were gonna go for him, I would want stone skin, or excuse me, hard skin, and enough to do personal regen. Now, new note, he probably would like to have personal regen, so you're going to probably beeline, what is that, 2 or 3 in enchantment, which you're going to want some enchantment anyway, so that's not a hard thing. The hard skin's not great for us, though. We already can bark skin on our thugs, and this basically doesn't stack well with that, but it's there, I suppose. 132. I really think we need research. I really, really do. And then 5 looks like where it's at. We have one more scale that we could get. Let's say, I don't know, order. Or we could just go back to neutral temps. So not very good scales, although we have affordable mages. That isn't the worst thing ever. His main thing is just, I'm going to do some expansion. And then when that's over, he can do some big earth stuff for you. Big earth rituals. He could forge some other earth things you normally wouldn't be able to do. He's okay. He's okay. I've played with this type of chassis before. He's more expensive than Dave the Lion, though. Dave the Lion gets a lot more scales. So just food for thought on that. So in conclusion, Eriu, a very interesting nation. I do think it has some potential. I do think it is on the weaker end of nations. A very mediocre sacred that is kind of whatever. Not the best troop lineup. The high point is being a generically human heavy infantry in the age, and some furbolgs that refuse to mess their hair up and put on a darn hat. Get with the times, dude. It's really disappointing because we could have done like Rain of Stones or something, but if we do that with these guys, they're all just going to instantly die. So that's a little bit annoying. We have some thug potential, although it's Fey Horse thug potential, which is just straight annoying to me, but it is viable enough, especially once we can get some barding out for those horses. That will really, really help them. Good research and a good glamour nation. One of the better ones in Middle Age, I would say. I don't know if I can say it definitively, but one of the better ones. Being able to just recruit anywhere glam 2s that aren't stupid expensive. I mean, this isn't cheap either, but they're okay at least. And do some interesting glamour things. That is still an area where I don't feel like I've really fully engaged with Dom 6 is in glamour. And this is a place that we could definitely do that. The point buffing playstyle is also one I like, but I don't generally do. So that could be kind of fun to just play around with that some. And thugs are always just funny on stream, so get some bonus points there. All right, well, hopefully this was another enjoyable one for you. Don't forget to leave a like on the way out. If you are not already subscribed, I hope this is the video that I've earned your subscription with. I'd love to see you here and on stream. And if you'd like to go above and beyond, you can always leave a super thanks. You could join us on stream and drop a super chat, or perhaps become a member of the channel. Members of the channel get early access to videos such as this, usually a week in advance. In addition, early access to whatever else I am working on the channel. All right, with that, I will see you on stream. Make sure to prep your glamour and buy some hats for these poor furbolgs. I'll see you there, builders.